I'd like to call to... You stop interrupting. I'd like to call to order the East Point Planning Commission meeting for October 5th, 2023 at 7 o'clock p.m. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Broll.
Present.
Ms. Naylor. Present. Mr. Lalonde.
Present.
Ms. Julinski, present. Mr. Lubeck.
Present.
Ms. Moody.
Present.
Chairman DeHunt.
Present. Can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda before us for October 5th, 2023.
We have motion. Do we have support?
I'll support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Moody.
Yes.
Mr. Lubeck.
Yes.
Mr. Broll.
Yes.
Ms. Naylor.
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde.
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt.
Yes. Can I get a motion to open the first hearing of the public?
Motion.
We have motion.
Second.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Broll.
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde.
Yes.
Ms. Naylor.
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Mr. Lubeck.
Yes.
Ms. Moody.
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt.
Yes. The first hearing of the public is now open. If anybody wishes to be heard, now is your time. You have 3 minutes. This would not be pertaining to the gas station, though. Your time will come. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Seeing none, we have a vacant audience. We'll close, or we'll get a motion to close the first hearing of the public, please.
So moved.
We have motion. Do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck.
Yes.
Who supported, please?
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Ms. Moody.
Yes.
Mr. Broll.
Yes.
Ms. Naylor.
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde.
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt.
Yes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of September 7th?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the September 7th, 2023 meeting.
We have motion. Do we have support?
I'll support that.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lalonde.
Yes.
Mr. Lubeck.
Yes.
Mr. Broll.
Yes.
Ms. Naylor.
Abstain, wasn't present.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Ms. Moody.
Abstain, I wasn't present.
Chairman DeHunt.
Yes. Can we get a motion to open the public hearing on item A?
So moved.
We have motion. Do we have support?
Support.
All right. Ms. Smith?
Okay. I will introduce.
Would you like me to take roll call on that
I'm
motion?
terribly sorry.
Oh, okay.
No, we just did that for show. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck.
Yes.
Ms. Moody.
Yes.
Mr. Broll.
What are we doing?
We're approving the motion for the public hearing.
Open the public hearing.
Yes.
Ms. Naylor.
We're doing the motion to open the hearing? Yes.
Mr. Lalonde.
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt.
Yes. All right, Ms. Smith, you're up now.
Okay,
Now that it's
so-
official.
Yes, thank you. So the public hearing this evening is for 24637.
Excuse me, is your microphone on?
It is on.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
A little difficult to hear you down at this end of the room.
It is a little low tonight.
Yeah. How about now? Okay, so the public hearing this evening is for 24637 Gratiot to consider the special land use for an existing Marathon gas station. So this is a reoccupancy, however, now in the zoning ordinance, anytime there's a change in ownership, if it doesn't have a special land use, then it does require special land use and site plan review. And so that's why we're here this evening to review the application for 24637. It's located along Gratiot in the MU3 Regional Mixed Use District, in which gas stations are allowed as a special land use. As a gas station, there are additional use standards, which we feel that the conditions that are applicable to the site are met. There is a standard that it must be 300 feet from any residential zoning district. However, since this is existing, we feel as though this is sufficient in that it's not looking to expand, it's just looking to continue operations. And so With that, the applicant is here this evening and their engineer, if we do have any additional questions for them.
If you would please introduce yourself, hopefully there's a sheet of paper there you can write your name on.
There is. My name is Aiden Calabat with Calabat Engineering. Business address for the record is 31333 Southfield Road, Suite 250 in Beverly Hills, Michigan. As Ms. Smith said, we're here for, special land use and site plan for a reoccupancy of an existing gas station. There are not really any improvements proposed on the site, aside from bringing some of the lighting up to today's standards, replacing old fluorescent and high-pressure sodium lights with LED light fixtures. So we've got a photometric plan included in it. We are in receipt of the plan review comments from the various departments, and we have no issue with any of the comments that have been made thus far, and can, if granted, conditional approval, condition on meeting the requirements from plan review comments, we feel confident that we can do so administratively through the planning and engineering departments.
Thank you.
And really just here to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Well, I think we can, unless you wish to be heard, we can go through the formality of closing the public hearing, unless there's any additional items needed here. Well, to be on the record, does anyone else wish to be heard about this? Seeing none, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Rubeck?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt?
Yes. Moving on to new business. Ms. Smith?
Okay, thank you, Chair. So, again, since this is a reoccupancy, we do recommend making a motion to recommend approval of the special land use. I think just one point for consideration is whether or not you would be okay with the gas station expanding in the future, whether it not be with this property owner, but in the future. So that might just be one condition you would want to consider in recommending approval.
Is there enough space to expand? Unless you rip out where they're doing oil change right now, I don't see how there's any space.
Yeah, or they would have to acquire probably an adjacent property.
What are you saying exactly? If they expand, they have to come in front of the planning commission anyways.
Well, for site plan review. But I'm just saying that once, this special land use is granted, it will remain with this owner and any future owner. So you may just want to consider whether or not you would like to make a condition that you are approving the special land use for the service that it provides now, or if you're okay with the gas station expanding for additional pumps or a larger convenience store space.
Would you make that same suggestion for any other gas station, or is it just this particular
I think
special
just-
land use, or is it any special land use?
I think this specific special land use request, given its location and its approximation to residential properties, I would think you would want it to continue operating as is, but not enlarge it, because it also is a non-conforming structure.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioners, any comments, questions, concerns of the
So I
applicant?
guess my question is, are you asking us to recommend that there be no expansion, or if we're going to include expansion, do it now? Because I thought I read it was right up to the lot line, already exceeding what we.
Yeah, they're not looking to expand now.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
just saying for any future
Yeah,
owner.
yeah, but it already said they're already at the lot. Close to the residents than they should be.
Do you want to say that for the commission? Okay. So there also are fire code limitations that prevent them from adding additional pumps.
So then we wouldn't
So-
need to worry about adding this into,
No.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think we're good.
Commissioner Lubeck?
Ms. Smith, are there any requirements or additional conditions that should be included with the special land use?
No, not that I'm aware of. The only conditions that we have is in term of the site plan.
So there is just the one condition that there be no further expansion?
Correct.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
I have a comment. This is an interesting one because last month in front of this body, we talked about ordinance changes. And one of them that came up was smoke shops. And then the discussion grew from there as to, well, why, the proximity of a smoke shop to a residential property. And the discussion grew from there and we were talking about, why is a smoke shop prohibited but a gas station or a convenience store or a grocery store is not? They're saying they're selling the same product, right? Nicotine, which is the issue here, that was last month. I don't have an issue with it per se, but it's interesting because we actually tabled that portion of the ordinance review, pending a future, which, by the way, I was going to ask, when are we going to schedule that discussion? However, if we had that discussion last month, we may have made a decision that would preclude this from even happening. So it's interesting in that it's very possible in a month or two, this would not even be a discussion. But here we are discussing it today without almost any consideration. I mean, depending what you guys think, but I haven't heard anything yet saying, hey, this is something we don't want, when indeed the fact is the ordinance could change in a month. This would be something we don't want. So it's something to think about.
Ms. Smith?
I was not here for last month's discussion, but I do believe that the smoke shop main concern was the proximity to schools rather than residential areas. And I think that was the main concern from the municipal and a state level perspective.
I think there was some ambiguity too, because we were,
Okay.
excluding smoke shops, yet allowing other facilities that sold tobacco products. So there was a little bit of ambiguity. That's why I think we tabled the discussion.
Yeah.
We
To dive in a
we
little
talked
deeper.
for probably 10 minutes on that, and it went in a lot of directions. So you're right, maybe that was the primary, but we did talk about,
Okay.
in a greater sense, so.
I think this would be just like any other approval. It's approved with what is actually in place at the time the approval is sought. And any future changes that would normally have a negative impact on a business, generally they're grandfathered in to operate under the conditions that existed when they were approved. So I don't see as big an issue with it, but thank you for bringing that up, because, yeah, that was a big point of contention last month.
It wasn't contention, but it was something that we need to think about. But it was a very good point. Does anybody else have any questions on this? Are we ready to make a motion?
I have a question now on the motion, not necessarily but the motion states, motion to recommend conditional approval of the proposed special land use for an automotive sales facility. Why is it not just called a gas station? Because in the ordinance, it's called a gas station. So why is that motion
Yeah, I
a
believe,
different term?
I believe that is a or a typo.
An error?
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
it should be gas station.
it's right in the motion.
It should be proposed special land use for a gas station at 24637 Gratiot.
Okay.
Do I have somebody want to make that motion?
Yes, I don't have an issue with what I just discussed. I just thought it was an interesting, timeline of what could have been and what's not, what is going to happen perhaps. I'm going to make a motion to recommend conditional approval of the proposed special land use for a gas station. I almost did it. At 24637 Gratiot, plot 1430-204-051, based on the findings of fact in the planning review letter dated September 28, 2023.
We have motion. Do we have support?
Second.
We have motion and support.
Just for clarity, we didn't add anything, right?
No.
There was a discussion also on that. Okay.
Yes, we did. There was a
There was.
condition that no further expansion be permitted.
I said think there we said was no to need.
Yeah,
to
there
have
was
that
no need
included.
to.
Yeah,
Because of
appar-
fire codes.
Yeah, fire code would prevent that from happening.
Okay.
So the only way they could really change anything is if, so if they wanted to change it from gas station, they gotta take pumps out, take tanks out of the ground, and you're talking
Major
hundreds of
project.
thousands of dollars. So.
Okay, thank you.
So we have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Roll.
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes,
Ms. Julinski, yes. Mr. Lubak?
Yes.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt?
Yes. Moving on to item B under new business, consideration for approving the site plan of 24637 Gratiot. Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so this, now consideration, yes, is a little bit more, not complicated, but has some further stipulations, conditions that we propose. And they're all listed here, but just going through one by one is that, one, the applicant remove the sign from the clear vision triangle, which is 20 feet in each direction at the intersection of street on Gratiot. And then the applicant reduces the sign's illumination and adds proper shielding as instructed in the review letter because of its proximity to residential properties. The applicant paint the off-street parking spaces along Gratiot. The applicant provide a screening device between the parking lot and the public right-of-way. The applicant provide information and meet zoning ordinance standards for dumpster enclosure, which is also noted in the engineer review letter that they need to provide dimensions for the dumpster enclosure, which would then be under administrative review. The applicant should also indicate the existing trees on the site plan and that they should plant a large deciduous tree in the green belt to the south of the site along Gratiot Avenue. And that the planning commission should consider requiring the applicant to pay the payment in lieu of landscaping for a total of 9 trees. And then with that, there's also some additional requirements from the engineer. And one that was not included in the planner's review letter is that the dimensions of parking spaces be shown on the final site plan, and that the wall along the rear of the property be extended to the public right-of-way line, which I can pull up on an aerial view if we had any questions about that. The one thing I would like to say before opening it up to discussion is that further along on our agenda, we are reviewing the payment in lieu of landscaping schedule. And this is something that John and I have been working on to reflect the true cost as the quantity increases, because the city can receive discounts with higher quantities and bulk, and also review the allotted time that the applicant has to make the payment. So I would actually recommend that if a payment in lieu of landscaping is considered in the included in the recommendation, that it follow what we propose here tonight, that the fee be reduced to $300 per tree, and they make the payment of $2,000 at the time they receive their business license, and full payment be completed 1 year of operating when they go to renew their business license. So we can, I see that was a lot of information, so we can go back and break it down, but I just wanted to mention that we can also take the time right now to discuss the payment in lieu of landscaping before any decision is made for this applicant, since it would affect them.
So the current price is $500, so we are charging too much.
No, we're not so 500 is the true cost for one tree. The true cost to acquire, transport, for the Department of Public Works to haul that tree out, dig a hole, the labor costs with planting it, and the maintenance costs. That is the true cost of one tree. But immediately thereafter, if there was a second tree, your transportation costs go down per tree, your labor costs go down per tree, and the maintenance cost goes down per tree because you're already out there planting one. So that's what the schedule reflects, is that 500 is the true cost for one tree, but as the quantity increases, then the cost per tree goes down, starting at 2 trees, which would be $400 each, so a total of $800. So it would only be $300 more than just one tree.
So what is his total outlay for 9 trees?
Three.
$2,700?
That's correct.
According to the new chart.
With the first payment of $2,000 and then the remaining $700 a year after.
If I may ask a question, as it currently stands at $500 a tree, it would otherwise be $4,500 as opposed to $2,700.
Correct.
Correct.
2,700 seems a little more accurate than the 45.
Yeah, if you're cutting the trees from the Pacific rainforest. Um,
These costs were also just verified by John when he contacted the nursery in which the city would acquire them from, if that helps. Yes, and our point of contact at the Department of Natural Resources. Each tree is actually $250 to $300 without transportation costs and maintenance costs. So that would be at cost.
Well, we're a municipality, we're not meant to make money, that makes more sense to me, if we're getting it at cost.
I really don't want to go down the rabbit hole of the payment in lieu of landscaping on a site plan.
I concur.
I've read through what's been proposed. I have a lot of questions. I have some issues with it, but I don't want to hold up a site plan on it. If the planning commission wants to put conditions on it, at this time, I'm not going to object to that. But I don't want to kind of try to mix the two. I want to get the site plan buttoned down, and then we can put the gloves on and start discussing the whole payment in lieu of landscaping.
There'll be no gloves, I got a mallet here. But I concur with what Commissioner Lubeck is saying. Let's not keep these people any longer than they need to.
I agree.
So,
Agree.
Quick question or request, if I may. One of the conditions is on the existing signage being relocated from the Clearview Triangle. Do we have an aerial view of, or can we pull up a street view of that at all? We can
Yeah.
kind of show. So this isn't a ground monument sign, it's a elevated raised sign. So I'm not sure, if that, it imposes an explicit hardship on the applicant. I mean, these signs are pretty significant. I think the request of reducing the illumination on the existing sign is pretty reasonable, but to try and relocate that from where it currently is on a site that is physically constrained and doesn't provide many other options, you're almost cornering this applicant into eliminating their signage completely.
I think it was in regards to these
Those-
temporary signs that are,
It did
Those-
say the air
okay.
signage. The air
That-
sign,
Yeah, I was thinking it was in regards to the main building sign, or,
Actually,
Signage.
I'm looking at that, and I would be far more concerned with the landscaping at the base of that sign than the sign
sign
itself.
looks like a rose bush.
So, but if it is in fact for the temporary signs, I don't think we'd have an objection, but I just want to make sure there's clarification as
It did say
to.
the air sign.
Is that what they're called? I always just called them a pennant.
They said air sign.
Okay. Do too.
I
They're not
think, yeah, I would
visually
be
appealing.
referring to this temporary sign as well as the one on the side street.
Well, that one on the side street, actually, both of those signs, all three of those
Yeah,
signs
really all
I'm looking
three.
at are in violation of our ordinance because you're not allowed to put signs in the right of
In the
way.
right of way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the applicant has no issue removing all of those signs within the right of way,
Good.
those oil change flags.
All right.
I have a question on number 8. The applicant plants a large deciduous tree in the green belt to the south of the site along Gratiot Avenue. Where exactly would that, are you suggesting that go?
That would be. I'm guessing where this temporary sign is currently located.
Okay, I was actually thinking, you see where that truck is is pulling out?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking you were talking that little belt right there.
oh, possibly.
However, that little belt, it looks like they own or they're responsible for a very, very small
Yeah.
portion of it. So I was a little concerned that would even be, factually possible. So, in the green belt to the south of the site along Gratiot, and that's what that small portion is. I don't think they could, if the suggestion is right there, I don't think that they can plant a tree there without basically being on top of the cement as soon as the tree grows a little.
Yeah.
Maybe
yeah.
I'm wrong. I might be wrong on that.
So this, I believe, is a 5-foot right-of-way, so they would just have to plant a tree that could grow within 5 feet.
That's,
But because it is a large, probably would be restricted to like a medium or a small.
I mean, do you want it, should it overhang the drive itself?
No.
It should
Once it
not.
grows, it's going to do it.
It
Right,
shouldn't.
that's why I guess, part of what I'm,
Yeah,
is it
right
their right of way to put it in, and B,
Yeah.
is it can overhang?
So we would want to work with the applicant then
Okay.
to select the correct tree for that location.
All right,
That one that grows up rather than expands.
okay.
And that could feasibly grow within the 5-foot. So it would actually probably be similar to the tree here that's already planted.
Actually, I think that's a lot wider than 5 foot between the curb and the sidewalk.
Where's our right of way?
Would that be an administrative thing? I think
You
so.
can handle it administratively.
Well, as long as it's on the south portion, if it's in the middle portion, which I believe it was just left at, why would you put a tree? There's 3 trees that already exist.
I thought there was only one tree.
I think there's 2.
Yeah,
On the other
we
side.
don't have the current trees on the site plan right now, but from this image, there are 2.
Okay.
So you're correct, Commissioner, that it would be,
All right, so
In this
we'll
little-
change that from deciduous to administrative approval.
yeah, a
Um,
small
if somebody
tree
were
based
to
on
make a motion.
administrative.
I apologize, I'm going to use our time here with you guys to ask a few questions of the review because it came to us pretty recently, but there was there's 2 comments on screening, one for a screen wall being extended to the property line at the rear of the property and one for the parking lot, just so we have a better understanding of exactly what we're looking at. Can you elaborate on those and if it's the parking, I'm guessing you're talking like maybe some short shrubs.
Yes, so to address the engineering letter first, they
Yes.
discuss the existing wall at the rear of the property and extending it to the right-of-way, and that would be this existing wall here all the way to the right-of-way here
What's the basis or purpose for that?
for consistency of to extend the existing screening. So we do require on the zoning ordinance that any parking lot, any asphalt-covered parking lot, so any parking lot that you can see from the public right-of-way should be screened. So it would be at the property line, at the rear of the property, and along Haas Avenue here. Now, there's not much space, so you could add a decorative screening wall or masonry wall along the property line here abutting the sidewalk. And the reason for that is we also want to have pedestrian safety. And so right now, for vehicles, there is not a defined separation between the sidewalk and the maneuvering space. And so adding that screening wall not only improves the aesthetics, but actually enhances pedestrian safety to make sure that there's not going to be a car that clips across the sidewalk where it shouldn't. So it's a better, clear, guided pathway. So given that it is paved, you probably would want to add some sort of fencing or wall between the sidewalk and the paved parking lot area here.
Yeah, I suppose I can understand the reasoning for that along the right-of-way. It's the one at the rear of the property that's very puzzling to me, because you have two abutting parking lots there.
Fire Marshal?
Yes.
You're gonna want that, due to what the land use is for the building behind you.
I'm not familiar with,
Use at night, you're gonna have cars that are gonna drive over them parking lots and go out of your driveway.
what's the use at the back?
So I would extend that 100% if that was my business, just my thoughts.
Sure, and I mean, from a land use perspective as an owner, if they felt that they wanted to do that, I could understand that. I guess my question is, they obviously just acquired this business and this property. They're looking to reoccupy it. They've spent a great deal of money to purchase it. I'm trying to see from a perspective of the ordinance and actual requirements, is it absolutely necessary, or is it, as you say, it's a good measure there? And I'm just kind of advocating for my client on that.
And it's also good measure and for ordinance.
So that's where I was unclear, is what's the section of the ordinance that's requiring screening between two commercial properties? So that's a commercial property at the back there, correct?
So, hold on for a second.
Yes.
Okay. Let me just drop the bomb here. That parking lot that is not yours, that belongs to the other property, that was just given a site plan approval and a special land use at last month's meeting. What requirement was there for the wall that separates these two properties put on the hall, being that is their parking lot?
It would seem that they would be as responsible for that as the applicants would be.
If not more so, because that's their parking lot that would be screened. It would not be screening our parking lot. It'd be screening their parking lot from public view.
Actually,
I'd
it's
have to
doing both.
Let me pull it up.
I will concur with the fire marshal. It is to your betterment for there to be screening between the two
Between the two,
businesses.
yeah. That I don't argue.
Not as a farmer, that's just me telling you
As
as a person.
a person, yeah. That I don't argue. It's just a matter.
As a person, I concur with him.
Yeah.
I think
What is
he's
that
saying
use
he
then?
knows somebody that's done that before.
What is that use back there, just out of curiosity?
It will be an
Event
event hall,
An event hall, okay.
we hope.
Yeah, and he, at one time said that he had been discussing a valet parking agreement with people at the
adjacent
gas
property.
station, which
Maybe they were the people that owned it before you, or I don't know.
okay, I better just be quiet now.
But
Inside voice.
yeah.
Stifle.
I was in there today, I did go see Mr. Glover today. Inspect his building.
So I guess my only question would be then, how do we decide who has to pay for that wall? I think if it wasn't required for one party, but for another, it seems.
Well, I would say
if
if
it's
that
for
was
the
the
right of
case,
way,
then
what are
there
we
was
trying
a
to block and
gross,
see?
I would say that would have been a gross oversight on the,
I think because it's
Site plan
commercial,
for
not
the other
residential.
business.
But there are many parking lots that we've approved over the last number of years that don't have separating
Yeah.
walls. I can think of at 9 and Kelly, we approved the Secretary of State with an abutting parking lot. I don't know.
That was a little,
I'm
it's
interested here, yeah.
a little different a
It's
configuration.
Ms.
different.
Smith.
Yeah, it is
Yeah,
different.
you're correct in that there are instances in which you want to connect parking lots, like the strip mall at 9 Mile and 994, or between 994 and Kelly, because of the limited ingress and egress there, and again, the proximity I-94, so to better have a safer traffic flow, we do want those parking lots connected. Here, again, this was a recommendation of the engineer. And I am finding the language within the ordinance that talks about this, but I know it is something that we did update in the recent zoning ordinance, the standards of screening. So again, in some cases, if the flow of the traffic makes sense, you do want to have your parking lots connected. But in this instance, there was a decision to limit the ingress and egress from the adjacent property to only one along Haas to prevent them from cutting through. So, that is something that should be considered in this instance as well. But let me find you the specific language. And also, I would say to the question of who would pay for, that would be between the property owners, but in terms of planning commission role, we only have say over the applicant that's here this evening.
Well, if we're requiring the other business to put it up,
Well,
there would be no reason to require this business to put it up.
we did not require 24611. So I just pulled up the conditions and we just required that they improve the parking lot. We did not require
Okay,
them
so-
to complete the screening wall.
I have to ask the question, why? We're not requiring them to put up a screening wall between themselves and the gas station. So why is the gas station being required to put the wall up with them? It was required in one instance, why isn't it required in the other?
I believe it's because the wall is on this property, but from my perspective, I believe that the screening between the street and the sidewalk and the parking area is more important.
That is
I-
not it, I don't have any questions with that.
Yeah.
I'm talking strictly the screening between the two different businesses.
No, I agree with you. I think that there is some leeway there.
And I think we should, if we did update that in the zoning, we should definitely stipulate if there's one between two commercial lots, because I think the objective mainly is to make sure we're protecting from residents with our screening walls and pedestrians. So that might be, if we change that, we might need to revisit
Well,
that
well,
zoning.
maybe it's just a proximity of when we're reviewing the two of these. But if they were coming to us a year and a half from now, we probably would have forgotten what we did. Or we would have, if it's required, then the other business should have put it up before they got approval, in which case it wouldn't be an issue. But the fact that these are happening a month apart and we're being told on one that screening needs to be there, but yet the business that we just approved last month is not required the same screening, it isn't making sense.
This
to me.
recommendation came from this engineer, it wasn't from the commissioner, so it came from this, maybe the last people didn't have a report.
You know,
Yeah, that's
and
correct.
I'm looking at this, we approved total experience?
Yeah,
We approved total experience last month, and we missed it. Let's just call it right out, we missed it. And I have no interest in forcing upon these folks the same thing that we allowed total experience to get away with. I would just highly recommend that you find a way to screen it. But I have no interest in doing unto these people what we did not require unto Mr. Glover.
I agree.
But back to Brigitte's comment, if the wall is already existing on their property, they would have to continue the wall that's already existing on their property. Brigitte, is that correct?
That is correct. And again, this was a recommendation of the engineer. So I just pulled up the zoning ordinance, and we would, from a planning perspective, we would only require it when it's abutting residential, as we all know. And so there is greater leeway in whether or not you want to have screening between the parking lots here. This is not a cut and dry situation.
If I may interject, by the language of that zoning ordinance, the ordinance does not require it
Doesn't
at this
require-
location.
It says residential.
The engineer made the comment, but, he's looking at a wall that stops, and, it says, oh, hey, well, why don't you continue that wall? But by ordinance is not required between these two districts. So, again, I'm trying to advocate for my client as much as possible. If it's required by ordinance, we're happy to comply, but
The ordinance advocated for you.
Yeah, it's really.
But I think you can see, so are we.
Yes,
We're we're delving into it and
Absolutely.
asking, wait a minute here.
yes.
Why was it
So we can-
not required last month, but now we're requiring it this month?
And I
Some's
appreciate
amiss.
all of the discussion. It's been very great. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing it to our.
And so this is the section in regards to screening from parking lot. Screening adjacent to the parking lot is not required if the parking lot area is completely screened from the right-of-way by an intervening building or structure. Where a parking lot is located adjacent to sidewalks, streets, and other right-of-ways, screening must be provided within 10 feet of the parking lot with the following. So again, from a planning perspective, we are more concerned with the screening between the sidewalk and the paved area on the property.
Brigitte, I'm curious, on the plan, the meeting last month. If that business did require, let's say the same consideration was given and the business should have put up a wall, what happens to the wall that they have right now that's there? Would that have been ripped down? Can you have two walls next to each other along a property line?
Yes, if this wall, which I believe it is, on this property, the adjacent property owner would not be able to remove it without the consent of the property owner.
So we could
Wall.
still require them to put up a wall along the same line,
Correct,
a foot away from this one?
correct.
Okay. We can't do that for something such as a privacy fence, right? But, right, so the privacy fence, if there's another fence along that property line, it has to be ripped down.
Yes, and that is under the city code of ordinances, specifically for residential fences.
Interesting, okay,
Yeah.
thank you, you answered my question. I don't like the answer, I mean, I don't like the idea of two fences abutting each other, commercial or residential or anywhere, it seems silly, but,
It's duplicative.
right?
Does-
I just have one comment regarding ordinance violations, and that is the LED rope lighting that you have around the garage door. We do not allow LED rope lighting.
Okay. That can be. See
It
where
would
that's
really
at.
only show up at nighttime, probably.
You can maybe?
No, it doesn't.
Don't question Sheila on rope lighting.
Say, have you met Sheila?
So you can add that in as a condition, even though it's already in the ordinance, just to remove any existing rope lighting.
Any further comments or questions, commissioners?
It may be up there, it may be in the ordinance that it's not allowed, but I think in a situation like this where it's a reoccupancy, if we don't specifically state it, it could later be interpreted as, well, you knew it was there, and you didn't have them eliminate it, and therefore it just makes it a little more argumentative if we don't mention it.
And I know you already expressed that you didn't want to have a long conversation about payment in lieu of landscaping, and I totally understand that. But from my purview as trying to be consistent in how we enforce the zoning ordinance and city code of ordinances, I just want to remind the commission that you did require it for the adjacent property that was just here a month ago. So I do think there should be some discussion on payment in lieu of landscaping.
Could we not make this an administrative decision? Or an administrative conversation?
For how much
Payment in lieu of
to,
trees? Mhm.
yeah, I guess you could require the payment in lieu of landscaping as determined by
Administration.
the planner.
Or
Yeah, or
we gotta talk
administration.
about the tree cost.
That would be
Yeah,
fine.
do that. I would say put that with the tree cost with the administrative.
Yeah, that would be fine.
I think so.
If I may clarify the intent of my comment, it was that I did not want to have that discussion as part of the site plan review
Yeah, that's
in
fair.
terms of the overall ordinance.
Mhm.
But I'm okay with this as a one-time, actually a second time because of what happened last month, discussion that pertains only to this site. Because there were some things that, after I thought about them last month, I was not very happy with myself taking the lead on that. So I'm okay with us putting it to bed on this site plan. It makes a lot more sense than what happened last month. There was a little bit of framework there. I can deal with it on this. And then we can discuss what we do going forward. I mean, ordinances are a living document, and they're constantly being modified. So,
So do we have, and,
You're saying
that we're just gonna
make this
Makes the motion, let
Yes.
that be administrative?
yes. So do we have any other comments before I ask for a motion?
well, and that administrative decision on that is also going to be able to handle that south tree that Mr.
Yes.
Broll
Yes.
questioned
Yes.
earlier.
Yes.
That's what he said.
So that'll be all encompassing.
Right.
And if that discussion at that point in time, administrative will know what our intent is with the payment in lieu of landscaping ordinance.
Correct. All right. Are we ready for a motion?
Well, just a point of clarification then. When you say that it's administrative approval, they could say it's free, or they could say it's 4,500, or they could say anywhere in between, or whatever number they want. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we're going to assume.
I think what we're saying is we have the baseline, and the administrative, they would just,
Comply with the new
Comply.
ordinance
Okay.
that we're gonna vote on in
Right.
5 minutes.
We know how many trees
They need.
they're going to need
and
to
we need-
provide, one way or another. How those are provided and at what cost is going to be the administrative decision.
But it's also proposed in here what the new cost schedule
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
We're gonna vote on that in a minute.
that's what you think.
It was actually,
you can not
it's
vote
a
on it.
discussion. It
You
was,
can
it
not-
was, it
you
was a
can not-
discussion
you
point.
I mean, I have a lot of discussion
Okay.
on that.
When don't you have a lot of discussion
Okay.
about trees? Walt? Moving
I'm advocating for
Moving
them.
on.
All right. Are we ready for a motion? Ms. Smith, I'm going to ask you to read the
Sure.
motion that you would like to hear, and then we will have somebody tag on.
Clever. Okay. All right. So I make a motion to approve the site plan for a gas station at 24637 Gratiot, parcel 1430-204-051, provided that a revised site plan is presented to the city planner to address the comments during the planning commission meeting and the required and recommended conditions outlined in the planner's review dated September 28th, 2023, and the required conditions in the engineering letter dated September 28th, 2023. And I'm going to add to that as decided by Planning Commission. And based on the fact that the site plan is generally in compliance with the ordinance, listed below is the information needed for site plan conditional approval and approval. 1, the applicant receives special land use approval from City Council. 2, the applicant removes the temporary signs from the public right-of-way and signs in the clear vision triangle. 3, the applicant reduces the site's illumination illumination and adds proper shielding as instructed in the review letter and by the zoning ordinance. 4, the applicant paint the off-street parking spaces. 5, the applicant provides screening devices between the parking lot and the public right-of-way along Haas Avenue. 6, the applicant provide information and meet zoning ordinance standards for the dumpster enclosure. 7, the applicant indicates the existing trees on the site plan. 8, the applicant plants a small deciduous tree in the green belt to the south of the site along Gratiot, as approved by administration. 9, the applicant must provide requested landscaping information as a note in the site plan. 10, remove any existing rope lighting. And 11, to make the payment in lieu of landscaping for 9 trees at the fee and timeline as decided by administration.
One question. On the number 5, for the applicant provides screening devices between parking lot and right-of-way on Haas, weren't we not requiring the parking lot?
No, that's between the right-of-way and the parking
Yeah.
lot.
Oh,
not
I gotcha.
between
Right
parking
here.
lot and-
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
That's
I
okay.
would ask
I think she
for
voted.
one minor modification to that.
Okay.
Let me see, where was it? In the required conditions 1 through 4 in the engineer's letter. 1 through 4 because 5 has to deal with the wall that we are all opposed to.
Well, it includes both of them, so the wall on the right-of-way and the alleyway. So the right-of-way we want to keep, it's
Oh.
just the one from the continuous.
The right-of-way is already addressed here.
Which
In this
number?
motion
Number five.
under, Number
Okay, so take
5.
it from his attorney, okay, got it.
and the number 5 in the recommendation.
Number five,
Handles
the
that one.
recommendations, okay.
I'm trying to remove the one that's for the one between the 2 parking lots.
That's fine.
I
So,
wait,
1 through 4.
sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Can you describe what the screening wall is that you are suggesting?
Between.
motion?
So it would,
No, just, I want to hear ratification.
it would be between the paved vehicle maneuvering area on the site and the sidewalk in the area that I'm highlighting on the screen right now. And then according to the ordinance, it would be either a vegetative buffer of 5 feet, which probably would not apply to the site, a decorative masonry wall or black aluminum fencing of 3 feet in height. So I would probably have it recommend, or the only applicable screening would be the decorative masonry wall or black aluminum fencing.
With at least 3 feet in height.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, we don't want a 6-foot wall there.
No.
I mean,
It's gonna go into the triangle view, so.
we had a suggestion about that on a prior site plan where the guy was going to put a 6-foot masonry wall on both sides. Like, how do we make this so that this doesn't turn into a problem? What would you suggest in the language that we don't have this become something that we don't want it to be?
Well, it's in, she just
Well,
read
it's
the
at least a
ordinance.
3-foot height wall. I don't want a 6-foot height wall there either.
We could say a masonry wall of 3 feet in height.
Is that a standard size? I don't know the standard size. Does
For
anybody know the
screening,
standard
yes,
sizes?
that would be the standard.
Okay, well, maybe we do that. Are you guys, is everybody okay
You
with
could
that?
stack bricks as high as you want.
It's, or
You want a
2
6-foot
or
wall
3
there?
feet,
Okay.
right?
You can add a condition that the screen wall not exceed a height.
Right. It's got to be
Not to
3 feet.
exceed 3 feet?
Not to exceed 3 feet.
Okay, not to exceed 3 feet.
Thank you. Thank you.
So would you speak that into the record, please?
Yes, I would like to amend condition 5, that the applicant provides a screening device between the parking lot and the public right-of-way along Haas Avenue of a masonry wall or black aluminum fencing, not to exceed 3 feet in height.
Please also address Commissioner Lubeck's comment on the engineer's letter, items 1 through 4, and just, well, we have already spoken into the record about the wall on Haas, but just make it 1 through 4, and we'll remove 5.
So, and then I will amend my motion to require conditions in the engineer's letter dated September 28, 2023, items 1 through 4, as decided by Planning Commission.
And that gives us enough teeth to get your screening wall along Haas and allow them some latitude. All right, we have a wordy motion. Do we have somebody willing to?
I make the motion presented by Ms. Smith, along with the conditions for site plan approval.
We have motion, do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support. Did you write that motion down? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck,
Yes.
Ms. Moody,
Yes.
Mr. Broll,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde,
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt?
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Now you got
Thank
city
Have a great
council.
evening.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Okay, so item C, under new business, this was just, we're not making any sort of decisions. This is just a discussion on payment in lieu of trees. So I'm going to defer to Ms. Smith, but we're not looking to make some sort of written in stone recommendation. We're just here to discuss it tonight and then proceed at a future date. Ms. Smith.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this evening, there is a memo in your packet regarding the payment in lieu of landscaping schedule. And as I previously mentioned, John Kraus, our CDAM fellow, has been working on ordering trees and working with Macomb County to improve the tree canopy in East Point, and so he's been looking a lot into the true cost. As it's written right now in the City Code of Ordinance, there would be a payment in lieu of landscaping fee of $500 per tree. And again, that is accurate for the singular cost of acquiring, planting, and maintaining the tree. However, we recognize that in most site plan reviews, there is a higher quantity than one tree, and so we are proposing to revise the cost of the tree to be a schedule of payment based on the quantity, and also to understand the potentially limited financial capacity to make the entire payment. And so we propose also a timeline in which the payment would be made. And so this, we're exploring this as an option to amend the fee schedule so that instead of just stating $500 per tree, it would vary based on the quantity, and then the time of payment would also vary based on the quantity. So if you look to table 1 of the memo, which I can pull up on the screen here, just 1 second. So there is a typo, please excuse me, it should just be 1 in the first row. So just for one tree, it is $500, and that would be required before a business license is issued. Anything above 1 would then be reduced below 500, so 2 to 4 trees would cost 400, 5 to 7 to be 350, 9 to 11, 300, 2 to 17, 275, and the lowest payment being $250 per tree. And that is because based on the prices that the city of East Point has received this year from nurseries, the true cost per trees is $250 at least. And so we don't want the city to lose money either in planting and fulfilling a private property owner's obligation.
I have a hypothetical. What if we had say 2 or 3 people before us that were going to do the planting in lieu of. Can they get the group discount? Like, could they bundle?
I think that's something that we could explore with city administration if there's like a community tree planting, because that actually is more effective for our Department of Public Works as well to go to one street and complete all the plantings rather than making multiple trips. So I hear you in that we should probably also explore a fee schedule then for residential properties as well and not just commercial.
And the ability for multiple businesses to bundle together. And this is why we're having this discussion.
Well, let me present the original thoughts I had when this was first suggested. Let's say we have a plot of land and somebody's putting up a new business and they have the room to put all the trees necessary on that piece of property.
Planning Commission can still require the applicant to fulfill their landscaping requirement.
But they would have to fill those landscaping requirements all at one time.
That would be again up to the decision of Planning Commission, because there is,
Well, I mean, we don't allow them to put up a building and give them 6 months or 2 years before they put up a dumpster enclosure when they're building on a clear lot. They have to have everything done in their site plan before they're signed off on and they have permission to occupy the building and conduct their business, correct?
so what, in the past, applicants had about 1 year to fulfill all of their obligations in the site plan, and not every applicant was, so we were running into issues with that. So recently, we have been requiring certain requirements to be fulfilled before your business license is issued. So, to answer your question, in the past, the applicants were given a year. More recently, they've been required to before their business license is issued.
Actually, what the intent of this whole thing was equity. If you're coming in and you have the room to do it, fine. If you're coming in, you're doing a new development, fine. Our situation is something like what we were looking at today, where it's already been existing for many years. But now we've put a landscaping requirement on it. And it is just a physical impossibility to put the amount of landscaping we require in on the property that way. It would be truly an undue hardship to the person that's coming in there. So the intent of the payment in lieu was to allow them to say, you still have to meet the requirements, but we're going to do it in such a way that we can use the landscaping in another part of the city. And actually, part of what the thought plan on that was seeing all the trees marked for removal because of the emerald ash borer. And also being familiar with what happened in Detroit with Dutch elm disease. Used to have streets in Detroit that were nothing but tunnels, treed canopies. It was beautiful. Dutch elm came in and the streets became like a desert. No more trees. So it was a way to try to be equitable between the situations. Okay, you can't fit 5 trees on your property, put the 2 that will fit, and we'll take the other 3 trees and find somewhere in the city where they're needed. And the question there is, you call in a landscaper to landscape your development, and you're paying whatever price per tree. Now we get into the payment in lieu, and a tree that they might have got for $200, we want $500 for. Well, we were trying to be equitable, but now it seems like, okay, you're trying to redevelop a property, you're trying to, improve the city, but because you're trying to improve an existing business, grab your ankles, because you can't fit all the trees on the property. And that was never the intent. So that's one of the issues I have with it. And it is a big one.
Recommendation, I'm curious.
The question, and most of you, I'm sure, have read the email that I chunked out shortly after the last meeting, is if they're hiring a landscaper to put in trees, is there a reason why that landscaper can't be paid to put the trees in an alternate location? I do realize that would be a little bit of an administrative issue on the city's part, in that the right trees are getting put in the right locations. But that seems like it should be a viable option. We outsource every other freaking thing in this city. Why couldn't we outsource tree planting in a condition like this? So if they want to hire Joe's 2 men and a shovel to put trees in, they get with the city, they find out where those trees got to go, they plant the trees. They don't even have to worry about paying us. They're paying their landscaper to do it.
But wouldn't they, I don't mean to interrupt, but just piggyback on that a little bit, they would have to be licensed and insured if they're going to be planting on city property?
Absolutely.
And we would
Checking.
like to, I would like to interrupt you, we'd like to make sure we know where the trees are being planted. So
Well,
I think the point of,
obviously,
Are we
there's going to be a
protecting
little bit of an
costs?
administrative issue.
yeah, so I guess the question I'm asking, so is your concern about the cost that we're infringing on them, or the fact these trees being located somewhere else, you want it to be done by them?
When the conversation happened last month, I personally am more concerned about the payment schedule and what we're doing to people to get these trees done. I have no problem with payment in lieu of trees, and the argument, or not even the argument, but the premise of what you put forth is very apropos. If you don't have the space, then you got to put them somewhere else. So the object of this discussion, I was hoping, was to dig into that fee schedule a little bit more. And then if we have additional side questions, such as Commissioner Lubeck's comment, why couldn't we have somebody who is licensed with city approval to go and plant trees? That's another thing that we could probably add into this. But for me, this monstrosity was the most important thing to get through, at least tonight, at least to have this discussion. But to Commissioner Lubeck's point, it is a very interesting idea to be able to have licensed individuals plant the trees with city approval.
But
Therein could be potentially cheaper.
But again, then I look at, okay, they're required 6 trees, they only have room for 5. If they have gotten 6 trees from their landscaper, they would have been $200 a tree, let's say, for sake of discussion. But because they can't fit one of them on, we're going to charge them 2.5 times as much.
Smith?
That
Yes.
just
So
seems
I
like
guess
it's
my
punitive, and
So are we saying you want to reduce the scheduled cost? What are we trying to get to?
No,
Reduce the scheduled
I
cost?
personally, all right, hold on. Ms. Smith first.
Thank you. Yes, so to address the question of why we recommend payment in lieu of rather than a contracted landscaper planning elsewhere is because, yes, one, we want to know where it's going to be and we have to coordinate that ourselves, but also we want it to be a quality tree that fits that location, that will grow, because oftentimes we see that trees by contractors are misplanted. They're planted in ways that harm the longevity of their growth. We actually were informed by the DNR that some of the trees in our parking lot that were contracted out were misplanted. And thirdly, we would just like to have say over the type of tree, I guess, to oversee the planting
All
and
right.
the type of tree.
So,
So we do recommend, I mean, I understand the sentiment of, oh, just have them planted elsewhere, but I think, and the city administration can speak to this better, but I do think in terms of the practicality of implementing, that is why you have the payment in lieu of landscaping.
all right, so my question then is, all right, so we're going to say that it's the city, DPW needs to plant these trees. So if I have opened a business and I have spent my $5,000 on trees, what happens if the trees die? Who takes the responsibility? Would the city be responsible for replacing that tree? Because I'm paying for it.
So that is actually, yes, the other component, and that is why there is that fee that's a little bit more than the price tag on a nursery, is to account for things such as maintaining a tree for 2 to 3 years after planting it. It has to be watered regularly and monitored to make sure that it's healthy and growing as it should. But really, regular watering is the key element there. And then, second of all, to replace it if need be. So yeah, that is one of the reasons.
Okay.
So again, that would be on the city, yes.
There's no guarantee that a tree planted by the city is going to be quality and viable. If you'd like to come over tonight, I'll show you the stick that got planted in front of my house a couple years ago when the city planted a tree.
So we
It
are,
looked nice for 2 years, and this year it's a stick.
that's
so-
fair.
That's the replacement.
But you just said something very important to me that's quite possibly going to change my mind on a part of this, is if they plant the tree on their property and the tree dies, supposedly, our code enforcement department's going to go over there and knock on the door and say, hey, that needs to be a live tree, it can't be a stick. So that gets them off the hook of, I'm guessing, we could say, in perpetuity, having to be worried about where one of their trees was planted and whether or not it was viable. It completely removes that liability from them. So that's a good selling point. I think you got me on that one.
Yes.
I'd be willing to see where, okay, we're going to charge you a little bit more, but you never have to worry about that tree again. It's our problem. So, second issue I kind of have is payment schedules. Again, when you give approval on something, you expect it all to be done before, final authorization and such is given. And if they would have had room on their property, they wouldn't have been able to stretch these out into multi-year payments. Yeah, I know, I'm the guy that suggested we allow that last month. But that's something, like I said, I've really reconsidered. So, okay. I'll go with the prices on the trees and the fee schedule.
Does anybody have any questions on the fee schedule, proposed fee schedule?
My only question is, where did the numbers come from?
Yeah, so this was,
I may have missed it.
yeah, this was based on research that John, our CDM fellow, and I have been working on. So John has been working with the DNR to John has been working with the representative from the DNR, and they've been working with local nurseries to try to figure out, first of all, the type of trees that we want, and then second of all, what are the costs of those trees? And from his research this past month, the true cost this year per tree is about $250 to $300 at a size that can be replanted and is more likely to stay
Be
alive.
viable.
So he did prepare this slide here, which talks about, this is just an example of some of the trees that we would like, but as it says here, we want the right tree for the right place and the right purpose. And again, based on the research of these, which this list was worked out with him and a representative from the DNR, the cost is about $250 to $300. Then from there, we thought about what are the transportation costs? What is the quantity that DPW would take out and plant in one location? And then the maintenance costs of the trees that would be planted in one location. So that's why there's a difference between 4 versus 5 trees. You typically wouldn't plant more than 4 in one location, or even one street or one park. So we were diligent in how we decided the cost. And then the timeline was decided on what we believed was feasible at the time of issuing your business license, and the city does require an escrow of $2,000. So we did max out the payment at $2,000 for when the business license would be issued, because that would already be on file with the city. Also, we are working on establishing better system with the clerk to make sure that all site plan requirements are fulfilled at the time that they renew their business license, which is why we established the additional payments to be made by the business license renewal, because that is a process we do have in place right now.
One thing that I would request on the fee schedule is a disclaimer in there somewhere that says, you have to take into account that prices change. Sometimes the cost of trees do go up. They may go down, but we also, there should be some sort of a disclaimer in there saying that it could be subject to market rates, something along that line, I think would be fair.
Well, that was a question that I was going to ask a statement, make in that regard, is I would recommend we don't put any pricing in the ordinance. That other than to say the pricing is going to be set as a fee schedule, which is updated every year at budget time. That's when they set the water rates, the sewer rates, permit fees, and so forth, that the pricing on this would be part of that. So annually, the city council would receive the information that says, in our PIL ordinance, this is what the fee schedule is for it. Because, if we set these prices hard, fast in the ordinance, and tree prices, for whatever reason, double in the next 3 years, now we got to go through this whole situation with an ordinance revision.
It's like
Whereas
fresh
if we make the
catch.
pricing as part of a
Market
fee
price.
schedule, council can change it as needed.
It could be reviewed annually.
Okay. Great discussion points. Anybody have anything else to add?
I would like to add, I didn't mention that we are also looking at creating a city tree fund within the city to better know how much we've accumulated in the payment in lieu of fees, so that when October comes, which is the prime planting season, then we know, just to help us keep track of how much we've acquired over the year to spend on the landscaping. And then I also wanted to add that the city is also working on partnering with a neighboring municipality through the DNR to establish a local nursery, which in the long run would bring down the cost of the tree plantings. But again, so that those costs would be equaled out by the decreased cost of the tree itself, but then the upfront cost in establishing a nursery.
So is this something that we can have you guys put together and bring back before us so that we can hash out?
Yeah, we can bring back the amendments that would be made to the zoning ordinance as well as the city code.
Do we need to hash any of that out?
I think it's pretty consistent with what we've said, but it would be nice to see it in a finalized version.
And then lastly, I would like to add, we also thought of some exemptions or waivers, if there's any comment on that, but the 3 conditions would be that a waiver could be granted if the applicant is going above and beyond their requirements and contributing to certain energy efficiency renovations on the building. And then we have the list here, whether it be appliances, improving building insulation, making roof repairs and replacements, renewable energy on site, replacing windows, retrofitting buildings to be LEED certified or living building certified, or a professional energy audit is conducted to address their energy inefficiencies. We feel as though those extra costs that they take on are a benefit to our community, and so we would reduce then the amount that they would need to make for their payment in lieu of landscaping. The second waiver would be for any financial constraints that the applicant.
Okay, I have a real big objection to that one.
Me too.
We don't waive requirements for anybody on anything else because they say, I don't have any money.
Okay, that's fair.
We'll have waivers coming at us left and right.
Yeah,
That's fair.
I don't want to start down that slippery slope. Economic concerns are one of the things they teach in planning you don't worry about. You can't make decisions based on economic situations. You know what? Somebody's building something on a clean piece of land, and they say, well, we don't want to put our 20 trees in. We've never said, oh, you don't have to. Well, you know that brick wall back there that you want me to put up is going to cost me 10 grand? Hard cheddar. It's a cost of doing business. So if you would please remove number 2 from there.
Can do. And
See, now,
then,
I actually didn't think that if they're going above and beyond something that's asked of them, that's their decision. That's not being imposed upon them by the city. And if they're doing that, the whole purpose is to improve the tree canopy in the city. And if they're going above and beyond, that's their business. They still need to put the trees in.
yeah, I guess I should rephrase it as, we want them to make those improvements. We do not require it in the site plan right now, but we want them to make energy efficient improvements. So I understand the perspective as well as like, they should be a good neighbor, and if they can make those investments, they should.
Okay.
But we do want to incentivize those improvements.
I kind of think we just need to stick trees with trees.
Okay.
Because what are you going to have next? The guy comes and says, well, I was going to put this in my building, but I'll go to that, now I don't want to plant any trees. No, I think we got to kind of try to keep some things separate. Keep trees and landscaping as trees and landscaping. And if you're doing anything, and trees, the city and the people in the neighborhood are directly going to benefit from.
Anything energy efficient, to develop some other type of program for that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and these energy efficiency issues, those are things that are going in the pocket of the business owner.
Correct.
And what I was trying to do in terms of trees when I first proposed this was to help the city in terms of getting more trees and not doing what we used to be. Oh, you can't fit the trees? Okay, well, forget about it. Because that is very unfair to the businesses that can comply. So let's
Yes.
try to shift them. If you can't put them on your property, I'm sure we can find places for them. Especially when you're walking through the parks and you're seeing all these X's on trees that are going to be coming down.
Yes. So we did include nonprofits only for the street tree requirement, not interior trees. Now, this would probably be a rare example because I don't believe in the past year we've had a nonprofit come before Planning Commission or have a new construction or anything, but is that something that we would want to include as an exemption or not?
Oh, I would say no exemptions. If either
Okay.
you plant the trees as landscaping or it's
Correct.
moved elsewhere, just landscaping.
Correct. If it's a church, chances are they have somebody that's willing to donate it. If it's another nonprofit, they probably have grants and things like that that are
Yeah.
supporting them. They can come up with, they can pony a little cash for a tree.
Okay. And then the last point was a payment deadline extension to be allowed as determined by city administration.
I'm okay with that point,
The only thing I would say about that
because it's gonna
point,
be renewed again at the business license, so you're gonna have a checkpoint.
Yeah.
that's true. Or not only that, just one extension, because a business owner could come back with an excuse and having numerous, so would only be allowed one extension if you go with this.
I vote no extension.
But I agree with no extensions. I was just saying, if they went with an extension, it should only be one. But I agree, no extensions.
All right,
No extensions.
I'm in agreement with both, I guess if I say I'm in agreement with Commissioner Moody, I'm covered under both. That her preference is no extensions, but if you were going to do, if she has to acquiesce on extensions, it would be a one-time extension.
And the only reason why I would say one extension, because if it's development, they're building, if things run behind schedule and you miss the tree planting season, I think we should have one extension. You will at least catch it this next season, because they are spending their monies getting ready and they could miss the tree planting season. So I say one extension, just that it's going to be caught because they can't renew their license, but they'll at least catch the one planting season.
That's an extension for the planting, that's not an extension for payment.
So this is just on the payment side of the
Yeah.
planning.
This is
as
payment.
well. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically, there are no, all four items
So they just did no
are
extensions.
struck.
No exemption.
No,
No
exemptions.
waivers. Exemption.
No waivers.
I would
no
agree with all that.
extensions.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you for trying, though.
That's okay.
Look at you trying to be business friendly. So,
I think businesses start needing to be East Point friendly.
Agree.
so do we have consensus that,
I go back. I do go back that, I know we're saying no waivers, but as a business owner, you incur situations to where you may not be able to make a payment. And I say we should give them one. Not be so cutthroat and hard, because we want them to make money. That's what we want them to do. And they could very well have a hardship where they just can't make a payment.
Well-
Only give them one time.
I'm listening, I'm understanding what you're saying, but what I have seen far too much, and it seems to be picking up lately, and we saw it very much last month. We've got somebody comes in, never gave us one receipt, claims he's dumped X number of thousands of dollars
That's right.
doing things that he never should have been doing to begin with.
You convinced me.
Is it my fault? Is it our fault? Is it the city's fault? That you ran in with a full head of steam and start spending money all over town without even looking into what was going to be required of you?
Well,
And then wanting us
you
to...
convinced her.
you convinced me.
You won.
You won.
No exemptions. We can move on.
We can move on.
Okay.
Or as John
Thank
said,
you.
you know, and then they expect us
You're
to
right.
bend over.
We got trained
And if
tonight,
we
so
don't,
gotta
they
keep
say
moving.
we're not business friendly.
All right.
And, well, just let me finish my statement. One of the first things
We got
I learned
training
in the
tonight.
planning was the whole purpose of zoning and planning is to make it very easy for the business to do what you want and extremely difficult for them to do what you don't want. And I think if you're doing what we want, we're very business friendly. And that's where I say they've got to start being East Point friendly in finding out, can I do what I want to do, where I want to do it, the way I want to do it? And if you can't, well, then it just doesn't fit.
All right, so let's not get lost in the
So we're
forest
clear.
here.
All four,
No exemptions.
all four
No exemptions.
exemptions are gone.
We're still clear on that.
All right,
All right.
Can
We're
I ask
going-
one more
I think we should
question,
make one more
please?
comment.
Well, if you quit taking up everybody's time, others could get in.
sunburn noise.
I noticed on this, and I may have missed it before, so I apologize, where it says free trees to call John. And that's for the residents or residents and businesses? Is this what is out there, or is this something that is going to be coming up?
This is currently for this year, I believe it's just for residents, the free trees? Yes, the free trees are for residents for this year.
Okay, then a quick question on that as well. So these are the trees that they could pick from, and the trees are free, and they have to pay to have them planted, or the whole thing is?
The whole thing is covered by a grant at the county level, and that is for this year. And so, yeah, the tree is covered and the
Planting.
planting is covered, and it would be in the right-of-way in front of the residential property, so the maintenance would be on the owner of the property. And then, yes, this slide here shows the 9 different trees that are available this year.
I need somebody to take my tree down.
All right,
No, Sheila, we will not add Buckeye trees to that list.
You won't know if I plant it. Okay, so, and this is already out there?
Yeah.
So I can call John tomorrow for this pretty pink one?
Yes, yeah, it is nice.
Okay, thanks.
all right, so do we have consensus that we want to have city administration and planners to reformat our existing policy and come back with something corrected?
I make that motion.
We have motion, do we have support?
Motion, if this is a discussion?
We're making a motion to direct them to do something. We're not approving anything, we're telling them to get it together so we can approve.
All right, so we have a motion telling the city to get it together on trees. Do we have support?
Support.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
I'm trying to figure out how to write that up first. I'm kidding. Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman DeHunt?
Yes.
Just put a note, have them refer to the recording.
We have no unfinished business, thank God. Can I get a motion to open the second hearing of the public for nobody in the audience?
So moved.
We have motion, do we have support?
Second.
We have motion and support for a second hearing of the public with nobody in the audience. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt?
Yes.
Seeing that there are no people that wish to comment, I make a motion to close the second hearing of the public.
We have motion and we have support, or do we have support? I support. We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Lubeck?
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Moving on to training topics. You're going to be quick?
Yeah.
Item A, you're up.
Okay, so the first point of topic is for the Open Meetings Act, and this is a long document that I would just encourage everyone to review on their own time. But essentially, the Open Meetings Act is in place for planning commission as well as any meeting of any body. I'm sorry, my microphone was off. But this is in regards to the Open Meetings Act of 1976. And we've included this full description of what it is as a refresher for all of the commissioners. So I would ask that everyone read over this packet on their own time, but just so that you know that any meeting of quorum, so the majority of the commission, is not allowed, and that pertains to any sort of communication between commissioners. So that's why when we send out the packet, we ask that you do not reply all, because that is seen as a conversation or a decision that is being made amongst the member of the voting body. without notice to the public or that information being posted and transparent to the public. And so that is why we always have to have our regularly scheduled meetings or post if there's going to be a special meeting so that members of the public are notified for any time a discussion and decision is being had.
And that would also pertain to any communication that we have amongst ourselves.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
And that, I believe, is all we need to say on Open Meetings Act.
Okay. Rich, do you have anything to add?
I did not, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to item B, this was something that I had asked because those vile Facebook groups were pillaring us over a number of different things over the years. This is the last time it was the event hall. And there have been a few people that have said a few things that were less than kind because they didn't agree with some of our decisions, so I wanted to put that on the record. So, Ms. Smith, if you can just give us a little blurb on why and how we have to make tough decisions and sometimes really anger people and why we have to do it.
Yes. So again, this is a long handbook, which I would skim as a refresher. But I do think that Chapter 4, meeting the public, does help address or reiterate some of those issues that, again, they are oftentimes an emotional response because our decisions are over privately owned land and the business that can be conducted thereon based on the land use. However, that is why we have the zoning ordinance in place, so that there is clearly communicated standards that is agreed upon by the representatives of the community. And it helps to create a standard in the community. And so that is the position of the Planning Commission, is to enforce those rules in the zoning ordinance. And I just think that there's a nice reminder on page 12 that, we can acknowledge the concerns, we can be cognizant of them in cases such as special land use and in areas of the zoning ordinance where Planning Commission can allow for waivers. That is a point in which you can be more responsive to the applicant. However, you don't have to answer all the questions, and you may not be able to answer all of the questions. Again, it is based on what is stipulated in the zoning ordinance.
I'm going to ask you to do something for me. On pages 16 and 17, we have some really strongly highlighted items that I would like you to read into the record
Sure.
for all two people that may listen to us. But I have found that there are some people that do watch the YouTube videos later on. So
Sure.
I just would like you to read those into the record, please.
Yeah, so this is Chapter 5, Making Tough Decisions. Proper decision-making starts with the basic. 1, knowledge of the zoning ordinance, which is posted online and available for everyone to view. 2, knowledge of relevant case facts. And 3, using ordinance standards to reach a decision. Additionally, all zoning decisions should be based upon the standards set forth in the zoning ordinance. Decisions are always based on the standards of the ordinance and facts, not on emotion or opinion of the applicant.
That is very powerful right there.
The applicant or anybody else.
Yes.
And while public input is a valuable part of the decision-making, you cannot simply mirror the wishes of those who send letters or come to the meeting. Your job is to follow the standards and requirements of the zoning ordinance. You are obligated to protect the interests of the applicant, the neighbors, and the entire community. Neighbors can provide a unique perspective on the neighborhood, which may create the need for further study or information to be provided by the applicant or gathered by the community, but ultimately the role of the public is to provide information to the decision makers, not dictate their actions.
Thank you.
And lastly, zoning decisions are rarely easy, and they are not usually a matter of right and wrong. balancing the needs of the community and the private property owners has been entrusted to each one of the commissioners, and it is essential that you honor that trust.
Thank you. Being that we're all exhausted probably, do we hear a motion to potentially table items C and D under training and reports? You want to go through it?
Yes, you've been here pushing that back for the longest, so I might as well finish it and take it.
All right. Item C.
I would actually ask that you table item C,
Okay.
and we can talk about item D.
Can I get a motion to table item C under training?
Motion to table item C under training.
We have motion. Do we have support?
Second.
We have motion and support. Secretary, please call the roll. Is it because we have no report in here?
Is it in there?
Where am I?
It's in my report.
Oh, it is. I skimmed over it. Sorry, I thought we didn't have it, but we could discuss it.
All right.
Remove,
So we're,
remove the motion just filed.
the motion is gone.
Okay. I think I just don't have it on my online version here. Anyways, so this is a summary and report of all of the projects that have been reviewed by the Planning Commission this year so far. It also, in the last column, gives the project status. So even the last meeting from September shows that City Council did approve the special land use. Are there any questions on the report?
I'm looking at the March 2nd report when we did the Moses Roses. And City Council approved it on April 6th. But I am trying, didn't they just come before City Council trying to combine their lots? So here's my question. If it was approved in April, and this is just a rhetorical question, if it was approved on April 6th, and Mr. Aiulo was in such a crazed rush when he was before us, why did they just now come to City Council about combining the lots?
Okay, I watched the council meeting, and the assistant city manager had admitted that that is an administrative task that did not need city council approval, and that in her many duties, she had inadvertently placed that on a city council agenda.
Okay,
So that item was removed.
thank you.
And I think Mr. Albright would confirm that.
Mr. Chair, that is correct. Ms. Holman and I discussed that prior to the meeting, and it was my recommendation to remove that from the city council agenda, as it wasn't something that was required as having city council approval.
Okay, thank you. All these folks were in a rush, and I've yet to see one shovel of dirt turned over or anything.
I do have a question on page 4 of this. It's showing the meeting date of August 3rd for total event or total experience banquet hall. And both it and the following item said status. Oh, never mind. I need to get back in my DeLorean and get back to today. It says September 5th, City Council approved it. For some reason, I'm thinking that it was in October that it was approved, but
We just got October.
we're just now into October. Like I
That is
said, I think
correct.
I had the wrong date in my DeLorean there. Never mind.
All right. Any other discussion on the quarterly review? Okay. Site plan, item D.
Okay. So this is the second activity from the site plan training many months ago.
Back in March.
Yes, back in March. And so this is just to discuss the activity in which you're supposed to compare the site plan to what their site looks like currently. Actually, now this aerial image is out of date because the site has began to fulfill their site plan obligations this summer. But based on this aerial, what was lacking? My question is to the commissioners, what was lacking from their site plan approval?
Trees.
So the trees, that was supposed to be the screening at the back of their parking lot in the alleyway. They
Yep,
are there now, although some of them are down. When we had this assignment before, we actually had the site plan. This is like finished one. There's supposed to be some stuff down the side of this building too. I believe there's some sidewalk flowers or something supposed to be down the sides of this
Also-
walkway as well.
yeah, they also had proposed to reconfigure the handicap spots.
Some markings
Yep.
supposed to be on the side of that building that they put the shed up against.
Yes, exactly, as well as a dumpster enclosure,
And close the dumpster that we're
yes.
still looking at.
So is this in compliance now?
It is now.
Okay.
Just now.
Is the storage container still behind the building, at the garage, or whatever that is?
Yes.
The
Still there?
garage, that was the,
Cooking shed.
It's a,
I
well,
mean,
no, I'm looking at
the
the
red
storage container right behind it. Is it still there?
the red roof and then that container. on
It's
the
a
wall.
tiny home.
oh, the,
It's part of the shed, isn't it?
No, that's a container.
I mean, it's a container, but it's attached to the shed.
I guess I hadn't
When you
noticed
look at
that
stuff-
before.
Is that allowed?
Is that part of the site plan?
Well, I don't know
We don't
what,
have the site plan in this package like we did before.
Oh, that's
It
true.
was excluded, but I'm going from memory, because I was like, I did my homework, and then we didn't have it, no, but.
show off.
But I do recall.
It is still there.
Right
The
there.
trees was on the back and some on the side of the building. All this marking on that wall, supposed to be marked, and also at the back was supposed to be 2 more marked spaces for the handicap and all. But those only 3, I think, I remember. I think, was it a tree put in the front?
I hope. I'm gonna have to drive by in the morning.
I can try to pull up the original site plan here. Yeah, it does.
Guess we have homework, or somebody's got homework to check on these things. All right.
Okay, I guess that includes,
But I think the lesson or the part of this training was, so they had X amount of time to get this done, or their business license aren't renewed upon renewal. So there's always that 12-month window, correct?
correct.
And hopefully he has done it.
So this is the site plan. It does show a storage container here, so that was included and it is allowed. And then they have now added the arborvitae here to screen the parking lot spaces, since again, we do require screening from the public right-of-way to the parking lot. They added an additional handicap spot. So yeah, we should look to see if they have they have 1, 2 trees along Gratiot and then 4 arborvitae. They were gonna add a parking space here, and then they were gonna screen the dumpster enclosure. So,
Might be good to see if they've done everything they said they were gonna do.
yeah, and typically there is, different shading to signify differences in objects, so, and labeling. So it was hard to see the existing container, but when you do look closely, you can see there is different shading, and it is to signify that there is a difference in either material or that it's detached.
So they kind of made that shed the front of that, so that container, if you look in there when they're cooking, It's like, that's the room, and then they're cooking in the front area. So it's like one unit from looking at it from this side. So they added to that or something.
Okay. Tiny home.
Tiny home concept, tiny commercial kitchen.
There you go.
Well, hopefully this activity helped in understanding the depictions on site plans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
All right, moving on to commissioners' comments. Ms. Smith, you're up again.
Thank you for having me this evening and for, yes, your continued commitment to your positions.
Mr. McCain.
Good evening, Commissioners. Good to be in front of you, as always. One thing I want to share, and I'm going to pass it down, is some training that we have coming up through our Redevelopment Ready Communities program. As I believe you all are aware, we are certified Redevelopment Ready Communities in the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. We were the fourth to receive that designation in 2014, and the city continues to, through our Economic Development Department, Planning Commission, Downtown Development Authority, and similar entities, update our policies and procedures to make sure that we are a business and development-friendly community. So these trainings are an opportunity to learn more about the program and the ways that we can continue to move in that direction, as well as secure our recertification in 2025. So I'm going to pass these down. The training's not until next year, but I wanted to give you the information ahead of time so you had it, you could start thinking about it. There will likely be another item as well related to RRC on your agenda for next month, so stay tuned for that. And last but certainly not least, I'm happy to share with you, though it is a project of the Downtown Development Authority, it is exciting news for the city overall that we did receive a Revitalization and Placemaking, or RAP 2.0 grant today from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation that will allow us to do significant work in bringing back the farmers market that some of you may remember from 2012 to 2013, though this time behind the library, as well as perform other infrastructure improvements in the downtown district. So that's all I have for this evening. Thank you all and have a great weekend.
All right. Farmers market, get some fresh produce.
Mr. Albright.
Good evening, everyone. No further comments for tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Lalonde.
I have no comments.
Ms. Naylor.
The air conditioner should be cut off by the time we get here in October, because it's like freezing. I'm sorry I missed 2 sessions. It's good to be back. Looking forward to, I have 2 trees I need to take down. I know you want your trees, but they got 2 trees they cut out, middle out. I think the next move is to follow my house, so I need to know how to get those trees down so they don't follow me. And other than that, I'm doing good. I had a little fender bender, well, not really a fender bender, I was the fender. Fell off my motorcycle, but I'm doing much better. So, glad to be back.
Glad you're around to be back.
That's it.
Ms. Moody.
Well, I want to say I missed the last meeting, unfortunately. Well, no, not unfortunately. I was celebrating my 65th birthday and my retirement. So I wasn't here for that. And of course, same thing. I'm glad to be back and glad to see everyone. And congratulations on that grandbaby down there at the other end. Congrats for that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Ms. Ulinsky.
Chairman DeHunt, I hope you had a wonderful birthday, and happy birthday again.
Thank you. You're not
It's not belated, it's still here.
today.
Still got about 3 hours and 6 minutes left.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, as always, Brigitte, thank you and your group for all that you do. Always like what's on the agendas, well, that you put on. That's all.
Mr. Broll.
No comments tonight.
Mr. Lubeck.
Happy birthday, Mr. Chairman. Happy belated birthday, Commissioner Moody. I know sometimes I'm long-winded. Part of that is by trade, I'm a technical trainer. And I'm trying to give the public that may be watching some additional information to try to help us understand what's going on and why we're doing some of the things we're doing and so forth. So, sometimes you got to kick that soapbox out from under me. But,
Just no ropes.
I'll tell you what I just thought after we adjourn the meeting and the microphones are off. So thanks for that indulgence there. Like I said, I tend to read some of those Facebook comments too. And I guess I've just been doing this so long that it just really frustrates me, the level of not just ignorance that the public has, but also arrogance. They think it's the way they think it is, and don't confuse them with facts. And yeah, I can tell you a lot of things that go back a long time. I know I was involved in this when Mr. Albright started with the city, and I forget how many years ago that was.
Probably a black hair.
2009.
2009, so that gives you a pretty good idea.
And his hair was black.
It was dark brown.
Yeah, well, I had hair, so there you go. Have a happy and safe Halloween. It sure isn't what it was when I was a kid in the city. But whether you trunk or treat or whatever, just be safe. That's it.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, I do have to add one more thing. Happy birthday to my wife, which will be on the 18th of this month. It's the anniversary of her 39th birthday, but I won't tell you what anniversary.
Her and Jack Benny. Probably nobody knows who Jack Benny is anymore.
My wife does.
So this is my time of the year to travel, and I was informed of a development going on at Sacred Heart in Roseville. A conversion of a church, a beautiful old church, into a storage facility and brew pub, or something along those lines. And then I was informed that it's the people that have the storage facility on Stevens and Gratiot that have been dragging their feet. So let me back this up. One of the very first things we ever did when I came onto the Planning Commission was that monstrosity of a storage facility, because we took the first thing that came along. They proposed 2 phases, the front phase and there was a back phase. I like to call it Part 1 and Part 2. Part 2 has not happened whatsoever. And then they came before us last year, I think it was, because they bought the land across the street and nothing could be done with it because of pollution, so they were going to put up these cheaper units for storage because they could afford that. But they could not afford to complete Part 2, what they had agreed to do. Now they have money to go to Roseville and desecrate a beautiful church and turn it into just an unholy spectacle, but they cannot complete the project that they have in the city. If it were a benevolent dictatorship, I would remove their operating permit, I would remove their business license, because if you come here to do something and you agree to do it, do it. That is it. You ask us for things, we give you things, you change the script. I'm over it. So I hope that those things don't happen too terribly often, because I think I wanted to drive into the ditch when I heard it. So that was my first soapbox issue. Second issue is 6 years ago on this day, I lost a very dear friend who was a staunch pillar of the community, Mr. Charles Peake. Many times he said things that people didn't want to hear, but he was always fair unless you did something stupid, and he had no problems pointing it out. So I'd like to think, in a very small way, I channel his passion for this community. Maybe not as blunt. Maybe I use a little bit of humor or a little side eye every so often. But I wish that more people in the city had some passion. I wish that more people cared. I'll say it every time. If somebody will listen, stand up and do something and don't bitch and complain. With that, I think we're done. Can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
We have motion. Do we have support? We have motion support. Secretary, a.k.a. Grandma Ulinski. Please call
Busha.
the roll.
Busha.
You're on, Busha.
Mr. Lubak.
Yes.
Ms. Naylor.
Yes.
Mr. Broll.
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde. Ms. Julinski, yes. Ms. Moody.
Yes.
Chairman DeHunt.
Yes.